Hello and welcome to Sinoinsider. I am Kit Young. In our last video on Chinese elite politics, I talked about the core principles driving developments in the Communist Party leadership. These traits include totalitarian Marxist-Leninist ideology and ruthless you die, I live factional struggle. Last time I described how factional struggles continues to play a central role in Chinese Communist Party politics, even after the economic reform and opening up of the 1980s. The economic reform itself was partially the result of Deng Xiaoping's struggle against Mao's successor, Hua Guofeng. Meanwhile, what many scholars mistook for a stabilized collective leadership actually reflected the factional dynamic between Jiang Zemin camp and party leader Hu Jintao. Today's China is seeing heightened repressions and intense emphasis on communist ideology under Xi Jinping's leadership. Under Xi, China saw a sweeping anti-corruption campaign, abolition of presidential term limits, and installation of his own ideology, Xi Jinping thought, into the Communist Party constitution. Beijing has taken a more aggressive stance in international relations, as seen its notorious wolf warrior diplomacy and attempts to use the coronavirus pandemic to advance its pursuit of global hegemony. To many China watchers, the apparent reversal of political trends under Xi Jinping's rule has come as a rude shock to the perception of the Chinese Communist Party. Most scholars are used to a China that places trade and economic growth over politics. The best explanation for Xi Jinping is that he is a power-hungry leader who aspires to become a second Chairman Mao. Xi's actions have not only provoked strong reactions from the West, Xi Jinping has also alienated elites in the Chinese Communist Party, some of whom now call for Xi's removal and even the end of the communist rule in China. So why has Xi Jinping reversed China's course during his 8 years in power? Was it reckless ambition that caused him to alienate both the West and elites in his own regime? No party leader can get to the top, much less stay there, by being reckless. The reason why the Chinese Communist Party has taken a hard left turn under Xi Jinping have less to do with his personality and much more to do with 1. Rising crises for Communist China, and 2. Xi Jinping's you die, I live situation in the Communist Party factional struggle. Xi Jinping came to power as a compromise between the Jiang Zemin faction, China's President Hu Jintao, and Communist Party elders. Xi was politically weak, a fact that appeared advantageous to Jiang Zemin and his associates. Being dominant in many sectors of the Chinese regime and economy, the Jiang faction believed that they could easily exercise control over Xi Jinping, just like how they controlled Hu. And despite being the son of a prominent communist official who fought together with Chairman Mao, Xi had no faction of his own. But in February 2012, the OneLegged Incident left the Jiang faction in serious trouble. Wang's attempted defection at the US consulate in Chengdu and elite politics revelation endangered his former boss, Chongqing Party Secretary Bo Xilai. This led Bo, a Politburo member and protege of Jiang Zemin, to plot a coup with the then security Tsar Zhou Yongkang against Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping. While the coup failed and Bo Xilai was quickly purged, Xi Jinping knew that his personal survival and political safety would always be at serious risk, so long as the Jiang faction remained entrenched in the Chinese bureaucracy, military, and financial sector. After all, the you die, I live stakes of factional struggle meant that Xi's only choice was to take out his rivals before they finished the job and take him down. Thus, shortly after assuming office in November 2012, Xi launched a sweeping anti-corruption campaign that resulted in a massive purge of officials, military officers, and business people linked with the Jiang faction. During the anti-corruption campaign, allies of Xi Jinping and the Communist Party's Central Committee for Discipline Inspection arrested hundreds of senior party officials, many of whom were members of associates of the Jiang faction. Notable arrests include Zhou Yongkang, who plotted with Bo Xilai, as well as military generals Xu Caiho and Guo Boxiong. Xu Caiho and Guo Boxiong were former Politburo members and vice chairs of the powerful Central Military Commission. They were also key lackeys of Jiang Zemin and greatly expanded the Jiang faction's control over the military through their personal involvement in the buying and selling of military ranks and positions. Zhou Yongkang, another top Jiang Zemin lieutenant, was one of 9 Politburo Standing Committee members, the top official who ran the country during the Hu Jintao era. Zhou was dubbed the Security Tsar because he was in charge of the Political and Legal Affairs Commission, a powerful Communist Party organization with paramount authority over all police, military police, and courts in China at the time. Under Zhou Yongkang, the Communist Party's budget for internal security forces was so large that it surpassed spending on the Chinese military. Now, how was Xi Jinping able to take down such powerful officials if he was politically weak and didn't even have his own faction? The OneLegged Incident and the Jiang faction's coup attempt gave Xi a ready-made opportunity to move in on his would-be political handlers. While the Jiang faction was very powerful at the time, their failed attempt to dethrone Hu Jintao and his successor was a clear transgression of unspoken party civility. Further, coups imply the existence of anti-party cliques, known in Chinese as 反党集团. Throughout the history of communist China, those accused of belonging to an anti-party clique and their associates are finished as a political force, and may even pave their lives. As such, the Jiang faction was left politically vulnerable. Xi was also held by favorable factional struggle dynamics. Some party elders who held sway in the regime and had an axe to grind with Jiang Zemin gave Xi Jinping their blessing to move against the Jiang faction via the AntiCorruption Campaign. Other party elites supported Xi's anti-corruption efforts, so as to draw distance between themselves and the anti-party clique. Taking out political enemies, however, is only one half of the equation. Xi Jinping also needed to reinforce his own political power to survive future coup attempts and dominate his opponents. To consolidate power, Xi acquired key levers of formal power, such as gaining political titles and a political theory of his own like Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Xi also strengthened authoritarian party rule over China and his paramount role in leading Party Central. Xi has often repeated the mantra, government, military, civilian, and academic, east, west, south, north, and center. The party leads everything. And if the Communist Party leads everything and Party Central leads the party, therefore it is Xi who represents the Party Central who leads everything. But wielding power in the Chinese Communist Party is like riding a tiger. As the head of the totalitarian revolutionary party, the party leader has to remain great, glorious, and correct at all times. Even if he occasionally admits to mistakes, they cannot be mistakes that expose him or the regime to fundamental criticism. Fundamental criticisms would weaken the leader and even have the potential to end the Communist Party itself, as occurred in the Soviet Union and other former communist countries. By mounting the tiger of the Chinese Communist Party and using it to go after his political enemies, Xi Jinping has placed himself in a catch-22. If Xi is the party, then what is done in the name of the party, including its human rights abuses, international aggression, and China's worsening economic situation, is also on his head. Just as Xi took advantage of his factional rivals' violation of party orthodoxy to take them out, Xi's rivals won't hesitate to turn the ideological argument against him when his policy failures become too large to airbrush. Put another way, Xi is stuck in political deadlock. He needs to constantly strengthen the party to protect himself, but in doing so makes him more vulnerable to being eventually ousted. Unless he finds a solution enabling him to dismantle the party, Xi Jinping could one day find himself in the jaws of the communist tiger. That is all for today. If you found this informative, please subscribe to be notified of updates on our channel. For in-depth analyses on the current actions of Xi Jinping and his political rivals, please visit us at Sinoinsider.com. Thank you for watching.